Hello and welcome to the Febar. My name is Jack George Maynard and alongside me tonight is Jack Pickering. We have loads to talk about. Does Oliver Rowland have one hand on the title, or is it too early to be saying that right now? But Wamey, where did that come from? Unbelievable from him. He's got the most amount of victories now in Formula E with 14. It was a wet race on Sunday. Were the tyres actually alright? I think we had a good race. What do you think? What did you make a pit boost? Is it time for it to be there for every season? Plus, was it right to have Monaco for 2 races? We want your thoughts on that. And then join the conversation on Discord and come and have your say on the Febar by hitting ! Discord. And we'll be chatting to you in chat. Mr. Pickering, though, how are you this evening?
I'm well, yeah. This is the first time I've worn anything apart from a vest in about 3 days because I'm severely sunburned from going to the football on Saturday. But that's not important. Do you know what's important though, Jack? 1 week today, we will be hearing to Dum, and we will be 8 minutes into the first semi-final of the Eurovision Song Contest.
Oh, really?
How exciting that it is!
Is it
How
next
exciting
weekend?
is that?
Is it next weekend?
So yeah, 1 week today, literally 1 week right now will be semi-final 1. Then we've got semi-final 2 on Tuesday, then the final on Saturday, the 17th of May. Okay. So yeah, so excited.
Oh, the 17th of May. So it collides with Tokyo, but doesn't really collide with Tokyo.
Yeah, it kind of
on the
does.
Same day.
So if the Eurovision final runs longer than 4 hours, it will eat into FP3 of the Sunday sessions.
Oh, well, let's hope.
Small
clash, but not really.
It's just practice, let's be real. Eurovision should have priority anyway. So
not really a major clash. So let's not too bad.
Yeah, no.
Right, I want to start with Oliver Rowland because. Okay, he finishes first and second over the 2 races. He's 48 points clear now in the championship. Do you think it's his, or is it too early?
That's the thing. You can't say yes because this is Formula E. Anything can happen. But it's looking very much like that it could really happen. If we think back to his season last year, the fact that he missed those 2 Portland races sort of cost him a chance at going for the title. This year he could miss 2 races and still lead the championship. That's how dominant he's been so far this season. And so yeah, I think he's been fantastic. To be first or second in every race bar 2, I think this year. That's consistency that is sort of unheard of with Formula E. The only thing that springs to mind is when Seb Buemi in season 3, every time he scored points, he won in season 3, and it wasn't enough for him to win the championship because Lucas was consistently there over the course of the season that year.
No, 100%. I don't think it's his time yet. Like, I don't think I can say categorically that he's got one hand on the title just yet. However, I do believe if he extends his championship over the doubleheader in Tokyo, then with what's that? So you've got 2 races in Shanghai, you've got Jakarta, Berlin. There's like 7 races left, right? I think if he walks away extending his championship lead by a considerable margin like he did in Monaco, then at that point, I think he could easily. I think he's got one hand on the championship. I think he's just been so good this season that for me, it's going to be one of those where Oliver Rowland could be champion way before we come to London. He could be champion before we get to London.
Yeah, and we've never had a champion that's been crowned not at the final location of the season. The earliest that we've ever had it crowned was 3 rounds to go, but it was still in Berlin in 2020 because they did the 6 races in 9 days. So we've always had the championship crowned at the final location. but we haven't had it on the final double header per se. And so and I think it's very feasible that the way that himself and Nissan have been performing this year, that they could wrap it up as early as Berlin, which is quite frankly staggering. It's his performance has been second to none this year, and we saw sort of glimpses of it last year, but this year he's properly sort of got on it. And if we think back to round one in Sao Paulo, he could have had a major result there as well had it not been for a late drive-through penalty, which because of everything that happened took him from probably winning the race to 14th.
So and if you add those points, and maybe we were already starting to say that this is Oliver Rowland's championship to lose. I think it's a shame that Taylor Barnard has fallen away, but I don't know where, because Formula E is so consistent, and have a 48-point lead at this stage is crazy. So let's have a quick look. Hopefully the championship standings are all updated and ready to be seen, so we can see what this means. So there you go. Oliver Rowland on 115 points at the moment, from De Costa on 67. So it's tight down there. Pascal Wehrlein on 66. So I feel like his title defense has been terrible so far, poor Pascal Wehrlein, but technically it's not been too bad. Taylor Barnard there slipping down to 54 with Nick de Vries, the big jumper, up to 52. What a weekend Nick de Vries had. We'll have to talk about Mahindra a little bit later on. Jake Dennis in 6th there on 44. Maximilian Gunther 42. Mortara proving that Mahindra are having a great time at this precise moment on 39. Vern on 34. And we have to talk about Sebastian Buemi before we get our sub-editor of Formula Rezone, Jasmine Hughes, on. Where did that come from? His first win since 2019. Unreal.
Incredible. I genuinely, I was just beaming from ear to ear, and when he crossed the line, I celebrated. It was such a genuinely fantastic moment for I think for him, for Envision were bottom of the team's championship coming into that race, and Seb was the lowest driver who had scored points coming into that race, and so that was just amazing. And that team, that it's really been struggling since they won the championship last season. Season before that.
They've been struggling since season 9, basically, when Nick Cassidy was in the car.
And then and that's not saying that last year wasn't. It was fine, but if you're defending champion, it was quite bad. And so to have this, and you could have asked me if you asked me who's going to win the race after qualifying, I would and given me a dozen picks, I would not have picked Seb Buemi, and that's the fool in me, because Seb, he hadn't won for 6 years. That team hadn't won for a year and a half. Most people were sort of going into the weekend in Monaco. Obviously, we have McLaren announced that they're leaving at the end of the year, and what that would do sort of to the driver market. And one of those things was, will Seb Buemi stick around after this year? And immediately he comes out of Monaco, and what a win! And I don't think there is, and I'll let you two talk about this. But I don't think there was anyone in the paddock who would begrudge Seb Buemi that day, because that was staggering.
Well, we're joined by someone who on the day said something to me about Sebastian Buemi. It is our sub-editor, Jasmine Hughes. She is currently muted, so we'll give her a couple of seconds. But you kind of introduced her in that way. But why don't we talk about... Hello, Jasmine. How are you?
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you are part of the team, so therefore, welcome on.
You've even got a lower third. Jack's put you on the lower third.
You've even got a lower third. You're...
Oh my God.
Was that made about 15 minutes ago, Jack?
It was made before the start of the show, yes. And I can change it.
Exactly.
And I have to change it later for Nick at 9. So it'll be changed for Nick at 9. But anyway, so I don't know if you heard Pico, but Jasmine, from what Pico said, he was talking about Buemi and he said no one would begrudge him winning that race in the paddock. And I thought, I know one person.
No, I'm a full Seb Buemi convert this weekend. Everyone was so happy for him. I mean, there was applause in the media center when he won, and he came in the press conference and he got a nice big round of applause and loads of congratulations from all the different drivers in the media pen. No, it was just one that, it was like a win for the sport, really. It was just nice to see him back up on that top step after so long away.
Since 2019 in New York was the last time he won a race.
If you think
Crazy,
about it,
which is also...
Sorry,
it's terrifying that 2019 is 6 years ago as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, it's obviously we don't have the same legacy as F1 or anything, but it's a little bit like when Lewis won in Silverstone last year, and that was because it was his first win in a very long time. He had struggled throughout that period, and so yeah.
Definitely, it's just one of those very, very human stories, isn't it? Where you're just happy to see someone do well, and you can only begin to imagine what he must have gone through in those 6 years of maybe doubting himself, doubting his team, doubting the decision to still be in Formula E, so yeah, this was probably he probably needed this. This was, everyone I think was very happy for him.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about Hankook, because obviously we had a wet race on Sunday, and the pace was 30 seconds off the dry time, which was an issue, and the drivers found it quite hard to race. But I'm of the opinion here that I'm looking back at that race, I'm thinking actually it was quite a good race. We had some challenges, the drivers found it tricky. So I know that people have said that these Hankook tyres are undrivable in the wet, but the product I think that we got was quite a good one. I don't know what you think to that.
I would totally agree. I think there were quite a few people in the paddock, both drivers, teams and journalists, who went into Sunday knowing it was going to be a wet race and kind of expecting not carnage, but maybe some offs and a bit of drama and probably your fair share of moaning from the drivers. But, I was talking to them afterwards and no one really seemed to have any complaints. I actually think the Hankooks handled quite well. I think it was definitely hard to get the heat into them at the start of the race. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be a tricky one for Hankook, and I thought they were going to have quite a few detractors afterwards sort of saying, they're no good for wet races. But I mean, I spoke to their Hankook's head of motorsport over the weekend, and he was really excited to have a wet race. And I asked him about it. I said, why are you so excited? And he said, I probably shouldn't be because it is our biggest test. But he thought, the tyres are going to handle okay. And that they know that they've made a product that handles quite well on the wet. And obviously, Sao Paulo, right at the start of the season, was a bit of a choppy waters for Hankook. But I think that, they handled fine in Monaco. I didn't really have any complaints or comments on that, to be fair.
We saw sort of earlier in the year, because Mexico City had a wet pre-practice and they were going around the stadium section at like 18 mile an hour or something like that. Was that something that you sort of spoke to them about, and because that was like the main concern, they were going really, really slow compared to the dry times?
Yeah, I spoke to him and I said, there were some complaints from drivers. Is this something that you've brought up with them? Have you spoken to teams about this? Is this something that you've taken on board for maybe future compounds? And the general takeaway was that he didn't really care. He said what drivers say when they get out of the car is it's adrenaline, and he's never going to take it personally. He doesn't take offense to if they sort of slag off the tyres a little bit. He just didn't seem to care. And I mean, looking at race 2 in Monaco, he seemed pretty right to not care because, they seem to have made a fairly decent product. And it did the trick. And we had good racing. And though they were off the pace, I think that's a given in Monaco in the wet because that's a tricky circuit at the best of times, let alone when the track's so slick and visibility might not be at its best. So, very confident man, and he knows he's made a decent product.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because the drivers after the race were talking about keeping it in a straight line, and I don't know how many times we countlessly saw them power slide. The fact that I think we didn't see a crash, it was probably compliments to the drivers because in terms of their skill,
Yeah.
because, when you're seeing them power sliding out of every corner, well, Lucas, that's true. But Lucas, I think more was it was an overtake that was never on, that he's completely overshot. I think, more than him getting it, more than aquaplaning.
What was the quote that Casey Stoner said when he knocked out when Valentino Rossi knocked him out a couple?
I can't remember. You're the MotoGP man. I'm not the MotoGP man. So you're not.
I'll have to get that up. Bear with. Continue.
But I've lost my point now. Thank you very much, mate. But I think they were struggling, right? And they said it looked like they were driving on ice, and I do think that the tyre obviously did play a part in them being so slow. I think if the tyre was a bit better, then we wouldn't have been 30 seconds off the pace. Like, I don't want to compare it to Formula 1, but there's not many series, if you're racing in the dry and racing in the wet, that you're 30 seconds off the pace compared to the wet tyre that you put on. I don't think you'll find many series that do that at all.
Unless it's torrential.
Unless it's really torrential, but it wasn't that torrential
I've found the quote. It was, "Your ambition outweighs your talent." Was what. And I feel that's what that sort of describes the move of Lucas Di Grassi going into the wall at Portier. Sorry, Lucas.
Yeah, but let's
Lucas.
And you guys can have your say. So what we want you to do is when we take calls after this is to have your say on the wet tires. Like, do you think, obviously people had concerns, but did you think it was a good race? Right, that's what we want to hear. Like, if you thought it was a good race, if you thought it was entertaining, because if it was entertaining, then technically Hankook, I think, have done their job. But we were talking at the top of the show, Jasmine, about Oliver Rowland and whether or not it was his championship to lose at this stage of the season. Now, bearing in mind, obviously, we still have, I think, 7 races to go. We've got, obviously, 2 double headers coming up in Tokyo and Shanghai, so that's 4. We've still got Jakarta 5, 6, 7 Berlin. So actually, there's still 9 races to go. So it's still quite a long way to go. But he's 48 points clear. But he's been so brilliant so far. 3 wins out of the 7 races that we've had so far. 48 points clear.
Yeah.
Like, has he got a hand on it already?
Maybe not a hand on it, but I think he's probably a couple steps closer to the trophy than some of the other drivers. I think he's been dominant, but more than that, he's been consistent. He has consistently scored well. If he's not on a podium, he's in the points. I think the key takeaway, I think we were discussing this with Nick, and Nick said that the big thing with Rowland is that even when he's maybe not had the best race of his life, he's still ahead of his main championship rivals, and that is ultimately what will put him ahead. I think were you saying, Pico, that he's got, like, he could sit out 2 races and still be in the lead, which is insane. So I think, it's not his to lose yet, just simply because we are crazily only at the halfway point, which is so strange because we've only really got a couple months of racing left. But not even actually exactly halfway through. I think we could see a lot can change in that time. But I think Rowland has put himself in very, very good standing he's probably feeling very comfortable at the moment, is what I'll say. And he's just, if he keeps this up, I think it will probably go his way.
Yeah, I just want to shout out as well to because obviously we praised Boemi because that team's sort of been nowhere for the entire, but also Nick Cassidy to get on the podium for Jaguar.
Yeah.
That was huge because I think he hadn't scored a point until the second race in Jeddah, and so to finally sort of get back on the podium where we're sort of used to seeing him, and Jaguar, I mean, like, that team, it's right now it feels like it's sort of it feels like it's doing sort of the same as Red Bull and F1, sort of with people leaving in terms of James Barkley, and things are starting to fall apart there, but yeah, and I mean, like, with Mitch Evans, Mitch won in Sao Paulo, obviously, but he hasn't registered a top 15 finish since then. Not even a points finish. It's a top 15 finish. It's remarkable.
I think listening to Cassidy in the press conference, it seemed like he really needed that podium. It was because, I mean, I can't imagine you joined such a team that was so dominant, and now, they're just really, really, they seem to be struggling. They just aren't where they should be. And then probably all these internal changes really aren't helping. And yeah, you're right with the Evans stat. I was just checking the standings before I hopped on here, and I was like, that can't be right that he's not been in. He won, and that was it. That was him done so far.
He was in the top 10, but he's dropped out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously they haven't had a great run of form, but to register points finish is bad. To not register a top 15 finish, that's worse.
That's not where Jaguar should be. You'd be thinking, okay, maybe, they're not going to be in the top 3, but you'd expect them to be getting points at least, semi-regularly. So to not even be in the top 15 is, yes, probably a bit concerning.
Indeed. Right, and just to cap off this little segment, we do have a game actually we've got to play, so we've got to be very quick. Pit Boost. I want your thoughts. It was the first time you've seen Pit Boost live in your own eyes. What was your opinion? And I asked Frederick if he thought we should be going for Pit Boost for the season next season. Have we seen enough? What do you think?
I liked it. I thought it was good, but it didn't feel too dissimilar to attack mode. So I do wonder if maybe do we phase out attack mode and we go all in pit boost and we really double down on that, because I do think it's a brilliant feature, and I think it's something Formula E needs to keep, because not only for the road tech and it demonstrates, what the future of EVs are, but that is a really, exciting element, and it's bringing back essentially refueling, which we haven't seen in like F1 in donkey's years. So I do like that, and I think it brings in an extra bit of strategy. But I don't know if we need both attack mode and pit boost. But I also think we haven't seen enough of pit boost yet to really kind of put out an opinion on that. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. I think come back to me at the end of the season.
Well, we will, because you'll be in London. But we've got a couple more races. Obviously, we've got Tokyo and Shanghai, so we've got 2 more pit boost races. So we'll see at least 2 more races by the end of this month.
I'll be honest. I really enjoyed pit boost in the Saturday race. The way that Nico Muller, I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the night. But Nico, he and Andretti played a blinder inadvertently, because they used too much energy by that point. And so by the time that the full course yellow came around, they could take that advantage. It semi worked out in the end, but no one else could do that because they couldn't activate it. I'm loving pit boost, and I think that it is the way forward. But I do still like attack, and this attack this year I think has been really interesting for me. I feel like I've banged on and on about this on the Febar multiple times, but I do think there needs to be a format change for the next generation, and I'd like to see a sprint that incorporates attack mode, and then a feature race that incorporates pit boost, and that's the proper race. But and then people get more sort of bang for their buck. But it's
one day.
It's complex. No, because we're doing 2 days at most places, so we might as well do two races.
Perfect. Right. Yeah. Let's play a game. So chat, you can get involved in this. Right. The rules are simple.
Get ready, everyone. Jack's come up with a new game.
It's not a new game. We played it before. Right? So the rules are simple. The closest score basically is the better score. So you want to be as close to the right answer as possible. If you get a direct hit, it resets the score. So if you are losing, right, it resets the score. So if you're losing by quite a bit, it resets the score. I've got 6 questions here for you. And we'll start with question 1. Chat, you can play along. Okay? And let's see how you guys do too. Right.
Here's where I embarrass myself.
Jasmine, you're going to go first on this one.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Right. What lap did Oliver Rowland pass Taylor Barnard in race 1?
Oh my god. I have no idea. Let's say lap 11.
Lap 11 for
I-
Jasmine.
I was thinking 13, so we're sort of in the same ballpark.
Okay,
Okay.
same ballpark.
Are you going for 13?
So, yeah.
Okay. We do not have a direct hit,
What a surprise.
but you are both 1 away.
It's like a really crap version of Battleships.
So the score is 1-1. So the correct answer is lap 12. Lap 12 was when
My god.
lap 12 was when Roland passed. Okay.
That's a win in my heart. That's
Right.
quite good.
We nailed that.
Yeah, together. We work together. Teamwork.
Pico, you go first on this one. What lap did Mitch Evans come to a stop on race 1?
Oh, the thing is, race 1 I was at a disadvantage because I got home late, and so I watched it after Miami qualifying. So I watched the race at sort of midnight-ish.
Yeah, you're getting excuses in. What
So
lap?
yeah. What lap did he come to a stop? 21.
21 for...
I was going to say 19, so if it's 20, that'll be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 19. Okay, so I've got to get my calculator out here. I don't need my calculator, should be able to be fine. So the correct answer, we don't have a direct hit. The correct answer was 14. So that means Jasmine was 5 away, so Jasmine is now on 6 points.
Nice.
And you were 14 plus 7, so that is 1 plus 7, so you are on 8 points, Mr. Pickering. Question 3. What lap did Nick Cassidy take his first attack mode in race 1?
Oh,
my god.
you're going first on this one because I went
Yes,
first
Jasmine's
last time,
first.
so.
I'm trying to remember. Did they take attack mode? They took it quite early in the first race, didn't they? Generally.
I can't help you.
Damn. Okay. Let's say lap 6.
Lap 6 for Jasmine.
I was gonna go lap 5. Oh, we're nailing this.
We are.
You saying lap 5?
Yeah, I said lap 5.
Okay, fine. No direct hit. Nick Cassidy was the first driver to take attack mode on race 1, and he took attack mode on lap 4. So that means Jasmine is on 7 and Pico is on 9.
Oh,
right.
That's very early. I find that writing the race report, you just forget everything that happened.
So question 4, just to speed things along. We still got 6 questions. How many cars? Not 6 questions. There's 6 questions. So, how many cars went into attack mode on lap 3 in race 2? How many cars went into attack mode on race?
It's like a riddle.
On lap 3.
All of these are riddles.
So how many cars took attack mode on lap 3? 4 for Pico.
4. Yeah, let's go with that. Just make something up. No one will know.
I was going to go 3 for 3. So 3 cars on lap 3.
Okay. We don't have a direct hit.
What a surprise.
The correct answer was 5.
Ooh.
5 cars.
Okay.
But that means Jasmine is on +2 for that one, so is on 9. And you are +1 away, so it's now 9 points to Jasmine, 10 points to Pico. So Jasmine is winning by 1. Now, question number 5.
If that makes sense.
How many laps was Jev in the lead of race 2? So how many laps was Jean-Eric Verne in the lead of race 2?
Ooh. Is it my turn first? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm going to say 8 laps.
8 laps for Jasmine.
Oh,
Pico.
I'm going to go. Oh, let's have some fun. Let's go 7.
It's not
I'll
a
be honest,
it's not a direct hit.
I've given up at this point.
Why?
Like,
It's tight.
I'm
It's
just
actually quite
I'm just
tight.
naming numbers.
The correct answer for anyone in chat is 14.
Oh Jesus!
So he was in for 14. So
He
Jasmine,
led for half the race.
he took the lead on lap 5.
Oh yeah, no, he did.
And then he
I was
didn't
going to say 10, and I thought maybe that's too high.
So he was.
Yeah,
he
no,
was,
that's
he
why
was
I
in
thought
it.
I'll go 7.
He
and
was
be
in
a
it for
little bit
14
safer,
laps. So what has that done to the scores? So that means Jasmine
Under the
was
safety car
9,
as well.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14 was 6 away. So 9 plus 6 is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So Jasmine is on 15.
Your counting's really coming on, Jack.
Yes, brilliant.
I'm proud of
Tell
you.
I teach
Yeah.
nursery. And 7 laps, so you were 7 away, Pico, so you were on 10, so Pico is on 17. Final question then. This could decide who wins it. What lap did Sebastian Buemi take his final attack mode on race 2?
Ooh.
What lap did he take his final
I'm
attack
going to
mode?
go with 19.
19 for Pico.
I'm going to say, let's say lap 22.
Lap 22. We do not have a direct hit.
Oh,
The correct answer was lap 20. So,
Oh,
Pico,
no!
so Pico has added 1, is on 18,
No.
and you are 2 away. So,
Which, yeah, we're both on the same amount. Yeah,
You're
there was
both-
no point to this. Yeah,
You were
wonderful.
both- you were
Well,
both-
well done, Jasmine. It's a truce.
I'll shake your hand.
we've ended up in a draw.
Yeah. Well, that was 5 minutes.
Are we having a championship decider, or was the winner the friends we
No.
made along the way?
The winner is Jasmine. Because you are
Why?
on 15 points. You've added a point, but she's added 2. So you're on 18. She is on 17.
But he was
Jasmine-
closer to the answer than me.
No, but you're 2 away.
Wait, hang on.
So if you add
Yes, no,
15
I
plus
was
2 is
2
17. But you're 1 away. It's not a direct hit, so you add 1 point to your title. So you are on 18.
This is a strange game, but if I won, then I like it.
Jasmine
Great game.
won.
No, okay.
I was like, when you said you were on the same, I was like, no, you're not. Let me just double check. And I'm like, no, I'm right. Because after the last score was 15, 17. You're 1 away, 18. 15 plus 2 is 17.
Yes, no, you're right. Yeah,
Jasmine
yeah.
has
Yeah,
won.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So Jasmine has
Yeah.
won by
Mickey
1
said
point.
Jack's
Yeah,
just making
no.
up the rules.
No, I'm not making up the
Oh,
rules.
yeah, no.
I'm not making they are the
I
rules.
hold my hands up here. I messed that up.
I was
messed
like,
up the math.
hold on.
So yeah.
I was like, hold on. I was like, let me just go to VAR and double check the maths. And Jasmine, you've won. But Jasmine, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
And congratulations on the win on the game.
Yeah, thanks for playing this
I'll be
mundane
back
game.
to play this again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
I finally found my calling.
Indeed. Right. We will see you later.
See you later.
Right. Let's get some calls in. And I'm going to start with Matt. Matt, welcome to the FE bar. I hope you can hear us. You're currently muted. Hopefully you're not miles away. So we'll talk for 2 seconds because we wanted to get some people on this show. And we'll do that for 20 minutes. Matt, welcome to the FE bar. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I joined because of talking about the grandstands in Monaco.
Yep. So you were there. So
Yeah.
tell us, how did you find it from the grandstands?
The grandstands were great.
Have you dried
you
out?
can see the pod. What?
Have you dried out?
Have you dried out?
Oh, luckily I was under shelter for that day.
Okay. Whereabouts were you then on the track?
So on the second day, which when it was raining, I was across from the pit. It was like K1 or something. P1.
Yep. Okay.
Was
So not
the
too bad.
seat?
Not too bad. So you were opposite the pit lane.
Yeah, opposite McLaren.
opposite the pit lane. So nice seat. What did you make of the races then? So, obviously you saw pit boost. You would have seen the I don't know if you saw pit boost. If you said race 2, you were there.
Yeah, race 1, I was just at the pit exit, the corner.
Oh, just at the pit exit.
Crash.
So, in terms of a pit boost race and an attack mode race, like, in terms of understanding the race, this is what I'm quite interested in. What race was easy to understand? Did you find them both easy to understand? What was going on? How did it come across?
I think both races were easy to understand. Obviously, the commentary's in French.
Yes, you do have the English guy. I can't remember his name that comes in every once in a while.
Who kept forgetting some of the names.
Yep. But so the races were fairly easy to understand then. So you're quite happy
even
with
if
that.
you didn't know the language, yeah.
Okay, good. So it's quite good then to know from the grandstands. I've never sat in the grandstands to find out how the race has gone. So what did you make of the whole entire event?
It was great. The fan zone was quite a walk away, to be fair.
Yes.
Because you had to walk around the whole track.
Indeed, yeah, because it's not far from the media centre, so by the edge of Rascasse. So,
yeah.
But to be fair, it is Monaco, so I don't know where else they'd put it. To be honest with you, it's been there ever since season 1.
Yeah.
What did you make of
that's why they put all that. That's why they put the F2 stuff and everything, and all the team trucks and everything. During the F1 weekend, I think. So, yeah.
But the signs were really good. The signs were very clear to follow and easy to find.
No, that's good. Yeah, it's quite well signposted, Monaco, which I liked. What did you make of the races in terms of like Oliver Rowland winning, Buemi? What did you make?
Oh, it was great. Buemi winning was mental, especially because he got the record for most race wins.
Indeed, yeah, he has got the. He's probably taken a few records. He's got the record back for the most race wins, and probably has created the longest distance between race wins in Formula E history. So that and it'll be interesting to see when that will be broken.
Extended the most wins.
No, indeed. What did you make of the wet race on Sunday in terms of how the drivers were handling it? Did you think from where you were sitting that there were any near misses? Were you surprised that some people didn't end up in any barriers?
Oh yeah, they were wobbling a lot at the straight at the pit exit.
Yeah.
Like coming back through. And I think it was, who was it? Jake Hughes was wobbling quite a bit.
Yeah, Jake Hughes had a bit of a strange weekend for him. He got caught up in one or two incidents as well, and Maserati haven't massively had the pace, so it's been a bit of a difficult one for Jake.
But yeah, quite a few drivers were wobbling.
Okay, perfect. But overall, you enjoyed the event.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Was it your first time doing Monaco or an FE event, or have you?
First time at Monaco. I went to London last year.
Yeah.
How does it compare?
How do you find the differences between the two of them?
Obviously it's very different because one's indoor, one's outside.
Yep. So you don't get wet. Important.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was very important in, was it season 9? When it chucked it down on the Sunday.
Well, yes.
Yes.
But yeah. Perfect. So overall, you really enjoyed the event.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. And first time call, so you're always more than welcome to come on in the future. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. There we go. It's great. It's brilliant to try and get like a bit of an insight from the grandstands, and quite a few people have just joined the waiting room. So if you haven't already, obviously ! Discord in chat, you can come and join the waiting room. I would like to hear from Connor. Let's hear from Connor. Hello,
oh
Connor.
Lord,
You've been selected. Yes, you're on the FE bar and you are live. Please do not swear. Welcome to the FE bar. What would you like to say?
I'll try not to swear.
No, don't swear. Don't swear. No one swears on this show.
I'll try not to swear. Yeah, I gotta say, I think for all I have to say really is I think the to focus specifically on race 2.
Yep.
Because I think race 2, I think it's fair to say might be the best race of the season so far. Potentially.
See, this is what I mean. Like, I think this is a good point, well made, because I think the wet race and so forth, and how the cars were, sliding and so forth, it was entertaining. And even though they were slow and they were struggling to keep it on the track, I think maybe it was actually entertaining.
Yeah, but I think there are 2 reasons why it was entertaining, and I think the first one obviously is because it is wet.
Yep.
And a wet race is always going to be a fun race.
Yep.
But I think the main reason is that, and it's a point that's been brought up before, but it feels like the cars weren't energy limited because of the wet weather.
Yeah, if they weren't energy
so
limited,
they could,
it didn't matter.
Even if they were going a bit slowly at the beginning, they were able to kind of push. Basically, they were going flat out for as long as they could,
basically,
or as much as they could for the entire race, and it didn't feel like there was any.
To be honest with you,
I mean, one of the better tracks for.
I think both races
racing
felt like a motor race. The field spread in the first race was incredible, and then also we had a decent amount of field spread in the second race.
Yeah,
so,
but I think it just it kind of goes to show that if you do get the right track, it's definitely a track. The races we have at the moment, where it's a peloton race, is definitely a track issue and not a car issue.
Yep.
So maybe they could. Yeah, maybe they could sort it. Maybe they could give the teams more energy on a peloton style track because it just makes the racing better.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't have enough energy. Like,
who'd have
thought?
Because I feel like we've got to the point now where, in terms of like, I'm gonna say distance.
Yep.
We've kind of. I feel like we're kind of here now because we've been doing it. I feel like when it first was introduced, we had lots of sort of car manufacturers coming in because it was a good place to like test all of their like electric car stuff, and it still is a good place to do that. But I feel like we're kind of past that, where a lot of teams have come and gone and they've done it, and the teams that are here because they want to be here, and that's great, and we love the fact that they want to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of the reasons that Mercedes put in their leaving announcement thing was that they were learning more about the EVs from their F1 program than they were from Formula E.
Yeah.
Now that's a damning indictment on Formula E. If you're learning more about electric stuff from a hybrid series than an electric series.
Yeah. But I think the point is that I think we're kind of past the point where we don't necessarily need the cars to be, how do I word it? You don't need them to be I don't want to say as efficient, because obviously them being very, very efficient is good, but you don't need them to,
they don't have to.
You can give them more energy, and it's probably not gonna
harm them.
You don't. I think it's less important for manufacturers because they've already done it.
Yeah,
they've already done all the testing they need, and the cars, if you gave them more energy, we could have better racing.
It's interesting
what's the downside?
It is interesting because obviously, in terms of the capacity, the energy numbers that we race at the back is well within capabilities. So but giving them more energy also extends. They either go faster or you increase the amount of laps, but then you get the same.
I think you just go faster, surely, because if you just increase the laps, you have the same problem.
But
it's
a
longer race, which is worse.
The problem Formula E have is that, let's say they gave more energy in Miami, for example, that race would have been extremely quick. Like, we're still, we used to have 45 minutes plus one lap. And then we're getting some races that are 38, Misano, 38, 39 minutes. Like, you can't have races less than 45 minutes, surely.
Yeah, the races need to be longer. For me, I think Formula E next generation, the races need to be well over 100 kilometre, if not something like 120, 150, something like that, just to make it like a somewhat interesting race. But also, they have the ability to give them more energy. So to give them more energy and more laps, but to give them more energy than laps, it's possible.
I mean, I don't think they should start the race with 100% energy to get to the end, because I think that's kind of a bit. Because the cars do regen quite a lot, that's a bit silly. But I think if they started at like 90%, So they start at 70% at the moment, don't they? So
Yeah, something around that.
Yeah.
But then you want to show off the regen of the car, so therefore, you know, if you're not showing off the regenerative purposes, then
I
you
think we're
could
past
argue.
that point, though. Unfortunately, I
You
think
think?
I think we're past that whole. I think like I said, I think the companies that have done it, and the companies that want to be here because they want to be here, rather than using it as a testing ground, are here because they want to be here. So why don't we give them, more speed?
Yeah, I still think opening up battery technology is very expensive, but that will draw battery manufacturers
Yeah.
in, and a manufacturer who wants to
Yeah.
build a battery. May
The
not
thing
be
is, I
interesting
think
in terms of cars, but go on.
the thing is, I feel like had we like opened up battery, opened up the battery tender, and so we could have more batteries in there. I reckon Merc might have stuck around for a bit longer. Same with BMW. Obviously, McLaren is they're just an outfit. They aren't a they
It's
aren't
just
a thing.
Nissan, yeah.
Even though they did create the batteries in Gen 2, I think it was. But yeah, it would. Yeah, it'd be nice to have like a different number of batteries, and then a battery manufacturers, but as long as they keep the sort of like the same regulations, then who would be against that?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
agreed. Right, Connor, thank you so much for coming on,
Nice, thank you.
and we'll speak
Have
to
a
you
nice
soon.
rest of your week, guys.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Street.
But let's get Ricardo in because Ricardo waited a long time last time. So, Ricardo, welcome to the Febar. You are live. What would you like to talk about?
Hello everyone. Can I just say that the championship is not over and Holly didn't win the championship yet?
Yes, we know this.
Yeah.
We know this, but
Yeah.
you can't deny it. I think over the course of last season, and this season, he's been the best driver. Like, I'm a big Nick Cassidy fan, right? In terms of, I will put my hand up and say Nick Cassidy, I think, is the best overall driver in Formula E. However, Oliver Rowland at the minute is making me question that because the consistency, the brilliance of what he's done, he's there every race weekend. And he's got a 48 lead point in the championship, and I can't see that being stopped at this precise moment.
Yeah, maybe, but this is Formula E. I know. I also said this when it was an FE bar, and you asked everyone who was the best driver on the grid at the moment, and I exactly said that it was between Ollie and Antonio, and I slightly went for Ollie, and I stand by it because it is confirming it absolutely. He is the most consistent driver on the grid. Aside from 2 races, he's been in the top 2 every race. So yeah, the team also have the credit because the race management is not only from the driver. He reads the situation, but the team also tells him the situation about the other drivers, how is the energy and yeah, this season is showing that Ollie is studying the race lap by lap and corner by corner also because it's also Mexico not so, but is winning Jeddah and the first race in Monaco were basically identical in the way that he won. So he was controlling it from P2, then he took the lead and took off. So yeah, you were what at the middle of the race maybe, or
Yeah.
just before he had what 2% more than Taylor,
Yeah.
and it was basically the same at Jeddah. So yeah, he is amazing, but I wouldn't discount a resurgence or a late comeback from the Porsches.
Yeah, I think Porsche would probably is only his threat at the minute. I think Taylor Barnard is a threat, but McLaren had a shocker really in McLaren
Monaco.
in Monaco. That's where we were.
You know the place where you
The
were.
place where I just was, yeah, just
48 hours
yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Don't know what I was trying to say.
You can really see how bad my sunburn is.
Yeah,
there.
you can,
Christ.
100%. But yeah, they had a shocker. Apart from Taylor Barnard getting pole, but obviously no fault of their own with Verline. Although that was that ended up being no further investigation, and I'm sure we've got some McLaren fans that might want to talk about that a little bit later on. But overall, terrible weekend. But I do think it's Antonio Felix Acosta and Pascal Wehrlein are probably his closest challengers. However, they haven't been very consistent themselves.
Yeah, the consistency is lacking a bit. That's why Roland is ahead by far. But I think in some way, if they sort out their consistency, they could be a big threat and the major candidates for the team's championship. But
No.
yeah, you saw the inconsistency because basically in race one, Verline had a decent race and Da Costa had a terrible one starting from qualifying, and then in race two it was reversed. So yeah, basically they can't, apart from Mexico, they can't score with both cars. Mexico and Miami, I forgot about it,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe. Well, in São Paulo, we always said, yeah, Porsches are too dominant, and Nissan still have their woes with their penalty issues and some more things. But then from Mexico onwards, it was reverse, maybe.
Indeed. Right, Ricardo, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No
Cheers.
worries. No worries. It's true though. I know it's early to say that. It's early to say that. Oliver Roland's got the title in the bag, but I can't see anyone challenging him at this precise moment. But we're joined by Natalie. So Natalie is now on the Febar. Natalie, how are
Hello.
you? What would you like to
Amazing.
talk about?
Firstly, thank you for having it today and not yesterday because I was at a concert last night.
Well, I was in Monaco, so I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I was at a concert in Nottingham, so thank you.
Yeah. So, what do you want to talk about?
Finally.
What do you
Yeah,
want to...
I'm assuming as an Envision fan, you've had a lovely last year and a half, haven't you?
No, not really. But Sam winning in Sao Paulo last year made it worthwhile.
Yeah, of course. But obviously, it must have been nice to see. But when we win, and obviously, he's taken he's taken the lead. Well, the 14 races, so he's the de facto leader of that again. So, and it's been a tough time for him. Not winning since 2019.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, everyone knows I'm an Envision fan as well as a McLaren fan. So it needed to happen soon, I feel, and I'm glad it happened on Sunday.
We're very glad. Very glad. What did you make of the whole weekend as a whole?
Mixed bag for me. Obviously, McLaren nowhere. It was nice to see Cass back on the podium as well, to be honest.
Yep. 100%.
No. I think that's given him the boost he'll need for the rest of the season. And then obviously, I'm not disappointed. I'm just very shocked about McLaren being nowhere.
Yep. Yeah, well, they struggled. So they went the wrong way with tyre pressures for the wet race. And we're just a bit unlucky, really, with what happened with Taylor Barnard on Saturday's race.
It's unfortunate, but it's racing at the end of the day. You get times like this.
So it's just how they bounce back.
And also up the Rams.
Indeed.
Sorry.
Well done. Well done. You're with us again next year.
Hooray!
You're staying up with the Oxford.
But
no.
Wasn't pretty, but we did it.
But you did it. But that's the main thing, right?
I feel sorry for Luton, to be honest. I feel sorry for Luton.
Double relegations. But we have to cut it there because we are going to take a quick break because it is 9 o'clock. So that means we will be joined by Nick Golding.
Can I do the break?
You can do the break. Send
us to the break.
Send us to the break, Natalie.
You're watching the FE Bar with Jack and Pico. We are going to take a short break. We will be back in a couple of minutes. Way off.
And we are back live for Nick at 9. No talking, please, because we've got to play this man's little clip.
It's Nick at 9. It's Nick at 9. It's Nick at 9. Yo, it's Nick at 9. No.
Is it done yet?
What ain't it? It's Nick at 9. Hey.
It's now done, Nick. Hello, Nick.
Okay, cool.
Honestly, that's how I feel about most things with the FE
Is it over?
Is it over?
Is it over? No, can I talk now?
You can talk now, Nick. Welcome to the
Okay, cool.
FE Bar.
Hello.
We've got lots and lots to talk about. I want to start
Lots and lots.
I want to start with Hankook with you first.
Okay.
We had a little bit of a discussion with but I want to get with Jasmine, but I want to get your opinions because obviously you speak a lot about whether or not if we're gonna have if it was going to be a good race, a bad race, whether there'll be crashes or they couldn't drive and so forth. And I know you spoke to a lot of drivers about it. So I wanted to get your opinion on the Sunday race itself. Like, I think, yes, they were 30 seconds off the pace, but I think we had a good race on Sunday. So maybe we might have been slow, but we got a good race out of it. So maybe it's not as bad as we thought.
To put it simply, it's as bad as we thought. Having spoken to and I agree with you. Having watched the race, I thought, hold on, give Hankook some credit. This actually is okay. No. Speaking to the drivers afterwards and saying, come on then, so that's the first real, genuine wet race of Gen 3, because obviously London's a weird one, because obviously half's indoor, half outdoors. But they pretty much said, I was speaking to Nick Cassidy, and I asked him, so come on, were the tyres as bad as you thought? And he was like, yeah, they're as bad as we thought. So the tyres, yeah. Probably the less said the better, because obviously nothing's going to change with Bridgestone coming in 18 months. And obviously we're also looking like we're going to get a monsoon tyre.
Yeah.
At least that's what's in the regulations at the moment. But yeah, I mean, to give credit to the drivers, they did absolutely awesome. The fact we didn't have anywhere near as much chaos in that race as I thought. Because I was speaking to Ollie Rowland ahead of the race, and he joked, he was like, yeah, watch turn 1. Because I think a lot of them were expecting them all, a bit like in the quali duel, just expecting them all to slide off at Saint-Devote. Because it just, I mean...
No heroics into Saint-Devote, that's what I kept saying all weekend.
Saint-Devote, it's just... We're an FIA single-seater world championship, and we've got an all-weather tyre, which doesn't work in all weather. But it's just, and I get the whole sustainability argument of having an all-purpose, all-weather tyre. But if we want to improve and really show what these cars can do, because what they are capable of is so much more than we can see. Because the tyres are crap. Like I would swear because it is past the watershed, but I won't. They're awful. They are.
Don't worry, mate. I've sworn half a dozen times on this show by this point. I should have a swear jar.
Yeah,
and
you should.
I think it's difficult because I mean, I don't seeing they cut obviously to Antonio Felix da Costa during I think it was during the group stage of quali, and just seeing they were literally going full lock and still going straight. Like I'm sorry, it just looks stupid. Like,
I must admit that was bad. I must admit that was
like, imagine going down the straight and you're on board a driver who's just gone full lock left and the car's still going straight. It's just and yeah, I mean, so massive respect to the drivers for actually, for those who reached the end of the race.
There was no
they
serious
were
crashes,
such hard
which was
conditions. They weren't, and I think a lot of that was because the drivers were aware that they couldn't probably push as much as they'd like to. I mean, you look at what that first Group A of the group stage. I mean, I take my hat off to them because, I mean, that, in my eyes, that probably shouldn't even have gone ahead. It just, and speaking to Nick De Vries, he was literally saying that, as you heard him when he was asked the question during the Formula E broadcast, if it's like this in the race, and this obviously was when the rain was really heavy. If it's like this in the race, what can we expect? And he just turned around and said, if it's like this in the race, we can't race.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens if we got lucky. I think the fact that it wasn't actually raining during the race itself, so the track was constantly drying.
Yeah.
If we get to a race, which I mean, it's very, very possible when you look what we've got coming up. If we were to have a race which is actually raining at the start,
Yep.
I mean, it just won't be able to happen. It really won't.
Okay. I want to talk. There was some news from Sam Smith about Opel, and obviously we had Tobias Wirtz from Formula News that said that Opel was looking likely to replace Maserati, and Sam Smith has also gone on record saying the same. What do you know about that deal and so forth?
Well, it's happened, so that's obviously out in the open. So yeah, Opel are coming in, Maserati are going out. The current discussion now is whether that's going to be the only Stellantis brand change, or whether we're going to be seeing perhaps Citroen replacing DS. There is still a chance DS could continue. That's currently something that is being spoken about. So yes, Opel coming in. Not sure how I feel about that, because would we say that's a
great
brand fit for Formula E? I would argue not, personally, especially when you have the history of Maserati, who put on an amazing parade, might I add, of cars. I don't know if they showed on the actual broadcast, and it was hilarious that none of them were electric. Yes. And they sounded phenomenal, I would say.
They did sound phenomenal.
But yeah, Opel in, Maserati out, and it's a shame, isn't it, really? Maserati, obviously, it's quite cool to say, yeah, we got Maserati in Formula E. Well, it doesn't quite sound the same. Hi guys, we have Opel in Formula E. No offense to Opel, if you're listening, you fancy paying for me to go to some races, that'd be very, very kind of you. But maybe perhaps it shows
when you lose Maserati and McLaren and you gain Opel, it doesn't really scream.
Exactly.
And even Citroen replacing DS doesn't scream. You know. Wow.
I mean, it's the thing as well, though, isn't it? It's like, it's brands, you know, are they brands? I would say Citroen less so, because I don't think Citroen is awful. But I think if you look at Opel, and again, no offense to them, in terms of single-seaters, and they're not a brand stoked in motorsport history when it comes to single-seaters, are you going to get Opel fans at races? Maybe in Berlin. But,
yeah,
you know, Maserati and McLaren fans can be found at every single race.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I'll be intrigued to see how many Opel t-shirts they're going to sell. I mean, I'll take one for free.
Yeah. But we took Andretti ones for free in London because the merchandise was terrible. But
I'll happily pay to wear one. I'll happily be paid to wear one. Yeah, sure.
Be paid to wear one. Heard that.
Yeah.
But again, though, maybe this says more about. You know, it's quite funny that we hear obviously McLaren leaving because FE no longer fits in their, you know, strategic portfolio. Is this a case with Stellantis that Maserati doesn't fit in the direction it wants to go in, and that maybe Opel is more towards EV? It's a weird one. Of course, we'll know more when Opel starts speaking to the media a bit more, which I can't imagine will be probably until near the end of next season, you would have thought, as then we're properly looking to Gen 4.
Yeah.
I'd be intrigued to hear for the reasons behind the change and why Opel, because I mean, you know, I know I sound pretty negative. I don't want to knock them completely because, you know, hopefully they do well and add something. And if they do, fantastic. But I losing the Maserati, I think that's really not nice.
Yeah, not great. So I want to talk about another driver that we haven't actually talked about today, because I was actually super impressed with Dan Ticktum over the weekend. And, you know, let's go with, you know, the Saturday. He was dominant, and was unlucky to potentially not get into the final and potentially start on pole. But obviously a great lap from Taylor. However, he has, obviously things didn't go massively his way of the race, and he took to Instagram and, you know, clarified one or two things on Instagram. And, you know, they were very Dan Ticktum. I do feel like since this driver documentary, he's felt like he can be more himself in a sense, where because he's never really done this before, and he's decided after that Monaco documentary where maybe people might understand him a bit better to show his true self a bit more. I don't know what you thought on that.
All right, give me a second. I think I have to word this. Okay, let's start with that first point you made. Let's start with on the track. Yeah, he was bloody fast in the wet and the dry. Had serious pace. In my eyes, that's probably the quickest he's looked since joining Formula E. He was absolutely on it, and obviously it was a massive shame that the team messed up the mode of the car so that he didn't get to do a 350 lap. That was hugely disappointing for him, particularly obviously in those wet conditions
where
as
this
well.
whole thing kind of started, really, that qualifying comment.
So that was really a real disappointment for Dan.
Those conditions suited him to the ground.
And the thing is, well, I thought it's quite funny as well that you look at the conditions and it was a British and a Dutch driver on the front row. They're just two countries that scream rain experience.
Yeah.
But no, I think, on track, he was brilliant. He worked so quick. Some of his overtakes as well were absolutely fantastic. And the way he got himself out of that runoff, I think it was at Mirabeau, was, the fact you have the commentators going, he's not going to get out of this as he performs perhaps the greatest U-turn in Formula E history.
Yeah.
So on track, fair play to him. Was he too aggressive at times? Yes. Was there some questionable defending? Yes. But I think, with Dan, you're always going to get aggression. Sometimes that comes off. Sometimes that doesn't. And I think at times as well, he knew he had a chance for a really, really big result. And particularly in that first race, he could see that slipping away from him, which maybe resulted in some desperate lunges. But nevertheless, on track, really, really impressive. Off the track.
Go on.
It's hard because I saw some interesting things in Monaco, and your point about he, particularly in Monaco, was showing himself more following the release of the documentary. To be fair to you, absolutely bang on. And you could really see that because Dan, to be fair to him, over the last 18 months, has actually drawn that back a lot. To the point that he was barely getting spoken to by any media. He was barely getting spoken to by FE themselves. Even his radios seemed to be getting covered less. And, he was, I don't want to say painting a better image for himself, but more importantly, he wasn't being controversial.
Yeah.
That, of course, has changed. And actually, I had a really, really good conversation with him on Thursday, ahead of the weekend, and said to him, mate, you came across so well in the documentary, and I thought it was so impressive the way you spoke about 2015, and of course the crash, and obviously what he did to get the ban. And I said to him, you did so well, mate. You should be really proud of yourself. And and he said, it was nice to be able to properly open up, to show his raw side, to get emotional, but most importantly, to show that he's not this person he used to be. He is trying to change. And I agree with you completely that since coming out of that, I don't want to say gone back into old habits. That's not fair on Dan, but I think he's almost trying too hard to be a character. Maybe I may not be wording this correctly, right? But I think doing your post-race debriefs on Instagram, fair play to him. And I think it's a good idea to gain an audience. It's a good idea to gain some new eyeballs.
Yep.
It's a good idea for him to improve his own following.
Yep.
And to be fair to him, they were in typical Dan style. And the vast majority, it was pretty comical, but he actually made some really serious points at the same time as well. What I don't agree with, and I really do hope he gets flagged on this, because I don't know whether this is something the FIA can get involved with, obviously over the new swearing rules and whatnot. I think not, because it's meant to only be for broadcasted interviews and FIA governed press conferences. But I really hope he's spoken to about what he said. Does he get a lot of critics? Yes, absolutely. Does he deserve it? No. Does not deserve the criticism, all the criticism he gets.
Yep.
But, and excuse my language here, and I quote, you can't turn around and tell critics or fans to go fuck yourself. You like,
Nick.
End of the day.
You could have said beep.
You could have just
You
said
could have
F.
said beep.
It's okay when I so and I quote, because ultimately, I'm quoting what he said, because at the end of the day, you're a racing driver. At the end of the day, you've put yourself in that position. You can't be turning around and telling your followers to do that. You just can't. And I hope he does get flagged up on it, because it's not right. Ultimately, he's the one who, even in his post-qualifying interview with FE, he's the one who came out and said that, you know, if I see my, I shouldn't see my team for 2 hours. If not, I'm going to punch someone. You can't say that. And I thought, and what I also really did not like is that, the punditry crew immediately kind of almost like laugh it off and joke. Nicky Shields was very much saying, I love a Dan Tixum interview. Whereas DC, who was absolutely bang on the money and said, yeah, it's funny, but let's be honest, your team support you when you're at your lowest, you do your same when it's the other way around. And then pointed out that, if he wants someone to punch, I'll pull him in front of a mirror. That was absolutely bang on by DC, because you stick by your team through thick and thin. If Dan wants to go and race for one of the biggest teams on the grid, have an actual chance at winning this championship, you cannot be going and telling your followers to do that, your fans. You have no idea who is going to watch that video.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think paints Dan in an even worse picture is I came across, I'm not going to name them out of respect for them, but I came across a group of 5 drivers who were all circled around one of their phones, watching the Saturday Instagram debrief of Dan and laughing their head off, saying, what is this guy doing? Because by all means, do like a post-race debrief on Instagram, show your personality, all for that. But you cannot, would you talk to somebody like that at work? No. Why would he get away with it? So I'm hoping to speak to Cooper Kiro soon and Alex Hugh and see exactly what they think of it, because I can't imagine they were impressed. And apologies for swearing, by the way, but like I said, direct quote.
Yeah. Well, Chris has put up there that says BBC rules, you can swear if it's a direct quote. So I don't know if
and it's past watershed, so you're all good.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I have to agree with you. I know I was going to start a debate on this, but I think you have. I think you've covered this. I think you've covered it in the most.
I mean, to be fair,
professional way. I think you could have potentially covered it, and I think the way that you sort of pitched it, I was like, fine, I'm gonna go against you, because I was gonna say, obviously, other drivers criticize their teams, right? And I know he's done this in a public. Well, he's backtracked. Right, so in the Instagram post, he backtracks. He said, "Look, I wouldn't have been with this team 4 years, and X, Y, and Z." And so he does backtrack on that statement.
Well, but ultimately he said it though. And to be fair to Dan,
you got Lewis Hamilton, right? I know he's just joined Ferrari, but basically he's telling them, "What are you doing? Like, what are you playing at?" On the team radio. And there's countless of drivers over the years, and I'm sure there's countless of drivers in Formula One who have, walked in with their helmet still on, absolutely fuming. I think I've seen Nick Cassidy. Nick Cassidy did it as well with Envision. I know it was the championship on the day, so it was a lot higher stakes.
I'm going to make 2 points there.
He didn't want to speak to Envision.
First things first, you cannot compare Lewis Hamilton to Dan Tixon.
I'm not,
Lewis
but
is a 7-time world champion, 105-time F1 race winner. He can say what he wants because he can back it up that he's a bloody good racing driver. And the thing as well is that in Lewis's case, whenever he says something on the radio, he is always the first person to be in that media pen, to whether it's apologise to his team, whether it's to back him up and say, we've got to get together to push on, or then be posting something on social media praising them. Nick Cassidy, you're absolutely right, has been highly critical of both Envision in the past, but also Jaguar. The one thing he is always then done in the media pen is, say just how good his team are. I've actually never heard a driver speak more about how good their team are than Nick Cassidy in Formula E. Dan cannot expect to get promotion to a bigger team, to have a bigger team wanting him, if he's going to go and be speaking about them in this nature. If that's how you feel, fair play to you. You can't say that when in a broadcast interview when you've got thousands of people watching, especially when you've got David Coulthard, one of the most respected drivers, full stop, pulling you in your place. In Dan's defence, Effie don't help, because yet again Effie were putting up, social media posts of Dan, saying things he shouldn't have said. But the thing is, though, they don't do that for any other driver. And I get why Dan gets so frustrated with that. And he pointed out in one of his videos, Effie yet again and he's bang on the money with that. The one thing you cannot do is be turning around and telling, and ultimately, it's not critic, it's fans. You know,
Yes.
you just, end of the day, Dan's in a position where he's going to be judged because he's a racing driver. Right
Yep.
or wrong, everybody watching racing has an opinion, whether that be the right opinion, the wrong opinion, but it's their opinion.
Yep.
And unfortunately, because of the job he does, fans are entitled to their opinions. They're entitled to say if they think somebody did good, somebody did bad. But at the end of the day,
Yep.
you can't then go and swear at them and kind of laugh about it, because it shows a massive disrespect. You can't be saying you want to punch someone from your own team. Yes, of course, there is in that the adrenaline of having just gone out the car, but you don't see other drivers do it, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. So I really, really like Dan. I do, and I was, and like I said, the conversation I had with him on Thursday was one of the best I've had with him, and he seemed like he's in a really, really good place. I just wish he helped himself, because that documentary did so much good for him
Yep.
and his image, and it feels like he's almost, to a certain extent, just wiped all of that from the space of 2 days.
Yep. I'm trying to think of other drivers, but then I think they are. I think when drivers are normally upset with their team, I'm going back a while here to Mark Webber with Multi 21. Like, I'm trying to think back what he just probably just blanked half the interviews and
I was watching Top Gear the other night, and they had and it was just after that where he went on Top Gear, and you can see a little babyface Mitch Evans just next to Jeremy Clarkson. But yeah.
But like, so I'm sure over the years, like, drivers have said things in the public or have not said things which are implied that they are criticizing the team. Dan did obviously backtrack on that statement, but yes, maybe in an FE broadcast, but obviously the adrenaline was still running high. I know that's not an excuse, but
the one thing just to throw my tuppence in is the fact that I have seen so much things from the current rookies in Formula One.
Yep.
And I think that Laura Winter did a video with them
Yes.
Earlier in the year, and there are about half a dozen comments that say, "Do not media train these guys.
Yeah.
Like, make sure they're not." And they are the exact same people that would comment on Dan's thing and with loads of hate. And so it's one rule for them, one rule for them.
The thing is,
I've met people that I've tried to say, because I know Dan from the last couple of years in the paddock, and he's a delight to interview.
He really is. He really is.
And I spoke to people who will not change their mind on Dan Tickton because of what happened 10 years ago, which I think is ridiculous.
I mean, it is ridiculous, but end of the day, it's a bit like some people never giving Formula E a chance. You can say whatever you want to them, but some people just will never give it a go for whatever reason, if they say it's no noise or anything. But the thing for me, Dan can say what he wants. End of the day, he earns more than enough money. He's a good enough driver to say whatever he wants. But if he wants to ever race for a bigger team, to have a chance of winning a championship in Formula E, he can't be saying that. But but again, and for me, the biggest thing of all of this isn't the fact, it's more the fact of he's got his peers who are literally around a phone looking at him doing this and just being like, what, and just saying, what is he doing? Like, what an idiot. Like, this is his peers who have much better seats than he has.
Yeah.
So, like, and it's actually, I want to see Dan do well, because I think he is such a good racing driver, and he proved in Monaco just how quick he is. I just wish he showed his personality, but in the right way. And the thing, yes, does he have critics which he doesn't deserve? Absolutely. So much of what critics say about him is so wrong. But the reason they say that is because they've never really spoken to him. They're just judging him still on his past, which isn't right. He did his time. He made the biggest mistake he could have done, which has ultimately cost him a future in F1. It cost him, so much. And he's lucky to even still be racing today in the position he is. And he knows that. And he knows just how much he effed up.
Yep.
But the problem is, though, is that he then still, to a certain extent, doesn't help himself. And I want to see him do well, because when he is focused on what he's doing, He's so good.
Yep.
He's so good. I would put him up there as one of the quickest drivers in our championship. He's driving a car with a powertrain that's not even from Gen 3 Evo, and he's still one of the quickest on track. Like, it's insane. Where was David Beckman in Monaco? Nowhere near Dan.
Agreed. Right.
If Dan looked after his temper, he would not be in that team. He'd be somewhere else.
Indeed. Right. I've got to stop you there because we're running out of time, and I did have a game.
Good debate.
Good debate, but we've got the waiting room is full at the moment, so I got to get some people on. But still got a game. I planned a game for you to play, and it's exactly the same.
Oh God!
It's exactly
another one.
Another one, but we're gonna do this one really quickly. Right. So
okay, that'll be another 10 minutes. No, everyone.
We'll do it in 5, less.
We'll do it in 2. 7.
Guess the height.
12.
Mitch.
I'm 5'10".
Mitch Evans.
I'm 5'11". I'm nearly 6 foot. What the fuck am I on?
For God's sake!
What am I on about? I am almost 6 foot.
Anyway, question 1. We're guessing the height of the drivers. You can do this too, and then we'll move on. Mitch Evans. How tall is Mitch Evans, Pico?
5'9".
Okay.
5'10".
5'10". Well, this was the one I was skeptical on.
No, just tell us the answer. Come on.
It says 5'7". He's 170 centimeters.
No, that's wrong.
I don't think that's right either.
That's wrong. Next one.
That's wrong.
Next one.
I don't think that's right. I think he's higher. But Zane Maloney.
5'4".
5'4".
5'5". 5'5".
Next one.
Eduardo Mortara.
5'11".
5'10".
6 foot.
No, he's not.
He is just.
He's about the same size as me, so yeah.
Just.
Next one.
It's currently 0-0. It's a great game at the minute. Robin Frimes.
5'9".
5'8".
5'7".
Right.
171 centimeters.
Doing well.
0-0. So last one. Stoffel Van Dorn.
5'11".
5'9".
We have a winner. And it's Mr. Pickering. He's 5'9" at 177 centimeters.
No, what am I going to do?
I knew he was shorter than me, but yeah. Right.
What does that mean now for the scores?
It doesn't matter.
2-2?
I win.
I don't know. It's
see you in a couple of weeks, mate.
2-1 Pico. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye, guys.
All right, so right, should we get someone in on this show that's for the fans, and we spent half an hour speaking to a journalist?
Well,
right, who are we getting in?
I am picking Blake. Oh, I tried to pick Blake and it didn't work. Blake, you're on the FE bar. How are you? What would you like to talk about?
I would like to talk about the how Dan Tickton got screwed over. Yeah. Honestly, Dan Tickton was on. No, seriously, twice this weekend he's on for a great result, but he's either let himself down or the teams let him down. Seriously, like, this guy's unlucky.
Was that Dan Tickton you said? Sorry, I misheard.
Yeah, Daniel Tickton.
Yeah, he was unlucky. Like, the pace he showed the pace he showed was unbelievable, right? He was incredible, I thought, in Monaco in terms of his pace and the fact that, and I did speak, and I did speak to him on Saturday, and he kind of said like the package just worked, but he said he was just on it, right? And when you're on it, you're brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, he's been unlucky, and I know we've just talked about Dan Tickton for the last 10 minutes, but, from a driving point of view, I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was unlucky, but then, so was Taylor Barnard, for example. His Formula E, it's all bunched up, so the chances of being unlucky is high.
It's very cutthroat. Especially Monaco. It's a very cutthroat track. If you make a mistake, your race is ruined instantly. Unlike tracks like Miami and Jeddah, for example, those tracks are less cutthroat. But Monaco, Formula E, specifically are very cutthroat. So
Yep.
one mistake, you're gonna.
No, indeed, that's our problem, and that's why we were amazed that there was so many. There was so many, in the wet. Then there was no any major crashes apart from maybe Lucas Di Grassi, but that was more him getting his overtake wrong, I think, on the Jaguar, than him actually crashing because of the wet.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Blake, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll speak to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Splendid. Let's get Nikki in. I'm interested to hear from Nikki. Nikki, you're on the FE bar. How are you?
Hey, mate.
What would you like to talk about?
Where do I start? But there you are. I'm not going to bore you with that.
Well, you phoned us to talk about something, so what would you like to talk about?
Just basically, right. Obviously, what happened to Sam happened.
Yep.
But on the other side, I'm happy because Oliver had a good weekend. So I'm sort of disappointed but happy at the same time.
Okay, you're slowly becoming an Oliver Rowland fan.
I think so.
Is it because he's winning?
Not necessarily. I said at the beginning of the year, though, Jack, to be fair, before he started to win, that I had a prediction, remember, that I thought he was going to be in contention for the title.
Yes. Which I don't.
So that was before he started winning, to be fair.
But he had been on a very good run, and obviously he was winning in season 9, so he was getting the best out of that Nissan powertrain. So
I think he still is.
Oh, 100% he is. I think at the moment he's probably the best driver in form.
I think the shocker for me this season was Jaguar. Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, then that's the thing, right? And that's something that's quite interesting that we've learned in terms of, and I kept saying this to Mitch, especially Mitch, because as he talked about, and even in the documentary, he talked about being the bridesmaid, right? And I said to him, well, you've got the car to do it. Does that put any extra pressure on you, or you feel like you've got to do it because you never know what's going to happen next season? And he had 2 seasons to potentially do it while he had the best car in the Gen 3 era, and you've gone to Gen 3.5 and you don't have it anymore, so therefore the chance of winning a championship's gone, and you're just part of the numbers. I don't know what you think on that, Pico.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree? I don't know what you think, Nikki.
I think as well it's a curse. It's almost like a curse because Division won the Teams Championship and then had a rubbish year.
Well,
and it almost seems like Jaguar have done the same and had a decent year when they won the championship, but then now had a you-know-what one. It's almost like there's a pattern, if you see what I'm saying.
In a sense, but then you could also argue the last 2 seasons the Jaguar powertrain was the strongest. It's just, they didn't win it.
Or it's because, like in Formula 1, maybe, that the teams are catching up. Not necessarily, you know what I mean?
Yep. No, yeah, of course. Teams always catch up, and that's the thing. We had a new development cycle. Look how much Mahindra have improved. Yeah. Teams don't stand still.
Definitely.
Right? Teams don't stand still, so if you get caught napping, and Jaguar must have got caught napping or gone wrong somewhere in their designs, and it's not worked for them.
No. But I definitely think Nissan definitely have stepped up big time.
Yeah. But what did you think go on.
I do feel Jaguar can. At the end of the day, they are Jaguar. They will be able to dig themselves out. They will have something to sort of challenge. And I think we've seen the start of that now with Buemi winning on at the weekend.
I actually disagree with you, Pico. I don't think it will be this season that they'll get back. I think it'll be next season. I think, for me personally, my opinion is it's between Porsche and Nissan this year.
Yeah,
I think for the title, yes. I think Jaguar are too far back now, but I still wouldn't. 100%. I still wouldn't begrudge them. Sort of, when you look at the form table, first half versus second half of the season, second half they might have a fantastic run, but it'd just be a little too little, too late sort of thing.
100%.
No,
but I might be wrong. I'm not always right,
No, I agree. What did you make on the Taylor Barnard incident in race 1 with Pascal Wehrlein? Because the stewards decided no further action.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because obviously I'm going to be biased and say, did Pascal hit him, or did he go in the wall himself? It's a 50-50, isn't it?
Well, I think there was contact.
I agree. I think there was contact, but it was 6-1 half dozen of the other, and so it wasn't a pen for me.
My belief is that Pascal hit Taylor, but I don't think he put him into the wall. I think it was the momentum of the car that put him into the wall, personally. But there was still contact, and I still think Pascal touched him.
Right? Can I reveal something? Because Jack phoned me whilst I was on my way back from Swansea. I
did. What did I say?
And so the thing is, I hadn't watched the race, and I said I hadn't watched the race, but I did. I had found out Nick de Vries had finished second on the Saturday.
Yes,
that was a good.
And Jack said, "Oh, that's okay. You haven't found out the main spoiler," which had my brain sort of like whirring. And so whilst I was driving down the M4, I was going, "Oh my God, has Taylor Barnard won his first race?"
Oh.
Because he started on pole, and I was thinking, wow, what a day!
Yeah.
What a day it is!
What I meant by that is you don't know anything,
and then I watched
basically.
at the end of it, no, I worked that out after Taylor went into the wall. I was like, oh yeah, no, he wasn't giving away anything. I thought you might have gone. I thought for you, I thought you were going for like the pit boost Muller thing, but yeah, no. So that's a little story.
There was quite a lot of things. There's quite a lot of things over the 2 days that you could argue here or there, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I know somebody that's saying that what happened with Nico Muller when he was helping Jake was that an advantage? I don't think it was an advantage, but other people have that opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, Nikki, thank you so much for coming on.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
No problem, Jack. No problem.
All right, we'll speak
to
you
you
soon.
later. Right.
Cheers.
Right, I want to get Seb on.
Right.
Seb, you on the FE bar?
Hello, Jack.
Hello.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Yes. Did you enjoy your tickets and did you enjoy your time in the media center?
Yes, I did. It was the free food was very nice.
Yeah.
I promise I did other stuff in the media center as well. I didn't just go for the food.
Do you get in the end then?
He did.
Because I know that you were trying to.
I applied for media accreditation. I got rejected, and then I emailed someone I already knew at FE, and then they overturned it. So yeah.
That's how it works, really.
So I'm interested to find out how what your seats were like.
When someone forgot to apply,
I emailed Formula E. And I said, hey. They still said no.
I emailed as well and said, please, and they still said no.
Said no.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that I already had some interviews organised, which I did, and then they got back to me like a couple hours later saying, okay, yeah, everything's cool.
Yeah, we should have said that, yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, well.
We didn't think that through. Oh, well.
No.
We were learning.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you make of Monaco? Seb?
Unreal, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, I bumped into Tom Brooks in the pit lane on the Friday, I think it was, Friday or Saturday. And I told him about the whole, like, I won tickets to Monaco. And he raised a really good point. Like, you see on TV and you play on the games like a Monaco for so many years. So like, you know the place to the back of your hand. And then you actually go there and it's just special. It's just unreal.
It's unreal. It's amazing. Like if people in here haven't gone to Monaco, you have to go to Monaco because
it really is a special place for just motorsport in general. Like it's Monaco.
It is. It's like I love it. Like when I'm in Monaco, it is a pilgrimage, but it's a non-negotiable event. Like you have to go. Like you can't not go. Like it is unreal. Pico will know. You know, it is one of those places. So if you haven't done the pilgrimage yet to Monaco, then we highly recommend it.
Highly recommend Formula E as well because it's the better racing that goes on there.
100%. How did you find
And cheaper?
Yeah, and cheaper.
And cheaper.
Cheaper. How did you find Sunday's race with the tyres and watching it from? I don't know if you did watch it from your grandstands in your seat.
Yeah, I watched it from my grandstand. I was up in the top right corner of T2, so I was in front of like the pit entry and the technical area, I think it was.
So did you watch the race there with the pit boost?
Yes, I was there for both races.
So
in my grandstand.
How did you find the pit boost pit stops then, seeing them live? Because you would have seen them live.
Can't lie, I wasn't really paying attention to the pit stops because I was watching the racing at the same time. But I did notice that Muller, I think it was either Muller or Dennis, they went into the backup charger at the start of the pit lane. No, it was Dennis because Muller obviously he had that issue with this charger, didn't he?
Muller had
it didn't work.
Basically, he had virtual energy. He didn't have actually real energy. The energy was in his car, but actually he didn't have it in his car. So one of these weird situations.
Yeah, and then Dennis used the backup charger because I noticed that when he came in for his stop, they stopped in the technical area and did it. So yeah, I'm guessing Andretti's charger broke. Is that what happened to Jag as well? Because I know Cassidy was really low on energy.
Well, I spoke to Cassidy about that, and he said, "Oh, that's the first I knew I was that low." So obviously he'd either pushed way too hard. There was some major miscalculation.
It didn't seem like he was over consuming, but if he did, then
Nick wasn't happy on Saturday. Like literally couldn't get. It was like getting blood from a stone trying to interview him.
That sounds like Nick.
So
Nick on a bad day is very hard to. Nick on a good day, he's lovely.
When I spoke to him on Sunday, I could get words out of him, but on Saturday it was like I don't have time to waste because no one's gonna listen to this.
Toby in chat has just said that was a miscalculation from Jag's side.
Yeah.
Not. Jaguar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least the Jags redeemed themselves over the weekend though, because gosh, this season's been horrible.
Yes, it hasn't been a strong one for thing. I want to talk about Oliver Rowland because obviously your picture is Oliver Rowland.
My go, my absolute go.
We're talking about whether or not like he's, a championship contender. Well, he's not champion, but like got one hand on the championship.
Championship contender. Let's see.
48 clear. But like he's got one hand on it. Would you agree with that, or do you think how many races do you think you need to say before he's championship elect if he carries on at this form?
I would probably say by Jakarta if he continues on this form.
Yeah.
But you say like the lead in the championship he has right now is very good. But I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but I did see something online on another server, around a similar time of the season in season 3. But when we had this kind of championship lead, and obviously we all know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So never say never. Never say never.
I will say I think Jakarta's a little bit of a push because to be able to win the championship in Jakarta, he needs to have a championship.
No. I mean, like, if he's still
but what we mean is he's championship.
I mean, if by Jakarta he still has like this kind of a gap in the
championship.
Definitely.
That's what. I
don't think he's going to have 114.
I know how maths works, Jack. I know how maths works.
But
just making sure.
What we meant by that was he'd be champion elect, like how Liverpool were.
Probably Berlin. Yeah. I'd say Berlin.
Yeah, I think he could do it in Berlin.
Yeah.
At the earliest, probably race 1 Berlin.
Yeah, probably.
If my maths is right.
But the way that if he continues the consistency, and if Porsche can't find any consistency, especially over the weekend in Tokyo, there's nothing to say that he wouldn't be 70 points clear up by the end of Tokyo.
Because Nissan were very good. Nissan Renault were very good in Tokyo last year.
And it's a home race. Like, it's a race that they want to do well in. Right? So, it wouldn't surprise me if Roland wins one of them. And then if Roland wins one of them... and
as it stands, he wins every other race. So he will win race
2.
1. No.
Race 2? No,
race 1. He didn't win.
Race 1.
Race 1. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. I forgot.
And then someone else will win race 2. That's because that's how it's been going so far this year. He won in Mexico City. He won the second race in Jeddah, and the first race in Monaco. So yeah, it's every other race for Roland at the moment.
Yep. 100%. But Seb, I'm glad I met you and in Monaco, and hopefully maybe might see you at some other races. But thank you so much.
I'm going to London for sure.
Perfect.
I got my tickets months ago for that, and
Brilliant.
I applied for media as well, so hopefully I get in.
Well, you've got a chance. You've got to one, so
I
you
will
have a chance
say,
for another.
Media is but media in London is hard to go by. But because you've already been in there once, that makes them more likely to sort of let you in.
So.
I mean, I applied back in October as well, and I've heard like that early on is good. So
yeah,
but yeah, I've heard it's very.
As long as you apply sort of like at least a month before the deadline, so like 2 months before the race, then.
Oh yeah, I applied last October.
Yeah,
so.
you're good. So Jack should be submitting my application for London in the next couple of weeks. So
well, I can do it tonight.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that long.
I can do it tonight. But anyway, I just needed confirmation that you were 100% in.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely doing London. I'm just not sure about Berlin.
Okay. Okay, interesting. All right.
We'll chat later.
We'll chat later. We'll chat after the show. Seb, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
And you. Right, let's get Sam in, and then we'll finish with Lou and Chris. Sam, welcome back to the FE Bar. How are you? How have you been?
I'm great, guys. How are you two?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Not too bad. What would you like to talk about?
So just on a quick one, just for the general weekend, how I felt about both races.
Yep.
Honestly, I think this might have been the best doubleheader I can remember for
I can agree
quite
with
a few
that.
seasons,
Yep.
honestly.
I can agree with that. So let's talk about Monaco. Like we didn't talk about this earlier, like whether or not it should be one race or two races, but you know, we've had two good races in Monaco. I know people say it's special. You're the Monaco E-Prix winner. You know, Oliver Rowland, you could argue, didn't get to celebrate being a Monaco E-Prix winner because he didn't get a chance to. He had a race to think about the next day. Do you think two races is okay because it's Monaco and it's a brilliant place to go to, or should it be special? Should it be a single race?
I think I'm in the mind of more Monaco the better. I think with just the single headers as they were excellent races as standalones, and I think like this week kind of showed, and yes, it did help that there were different conditions and different formats of how the races ran. Both had their charms, and they both, delivered excellently. And I get the argument that you want to just be the single winner of a Monaco race for that year. I get that, but I do think it's not with. I feel that should just be reserved for, say, the Monaco Grand Prix. Given the historic value of that event, so I'm in the camp of double headers for Monaco. I'm more of an advocate than
For me, I'd have double headers there every race, but I'm a big fan for double headers. The only problem for me is obviously then trying to get back home on the Sunday night and trying to get the last flight home for Monday, but it just makes it a bit more difficult. Whereas if you've got one race on a Saturday, then you can get home on a Sunday fairly easy. That's the only perk of Formula E, to be honest. It's a bit tougher now on a double race, but if you can manage it, then because I couldn't do Misano because of that 1 year. I could get to Misano, but I couldn't get home because I would have missed the Sunday race, and I thought, well, I'm not going to miss a race, so I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, any other thoughts you wanted to add?
I know I'm conscious for time. Just more so about the two brands that we know that are leaving, Maserati and McLaren. McLaren, obviously, it's a great shame. I think the Maserati departure, I don't think, with the way I think Tobias brought it up.
Yep.
From the previous FE bar, their brand's in quite poor shape, so I'm not too surprised.
Yep.
But for McLaren, it is a shame. It doesn't look good. And it is good to know that the team are likely to continue. But I think for their current form for McLaren, it's at least, Barnard making, the performance earlier in the season. That team just seems really peaky.
Yeah.
In terms of performance. It's either hero on a hero weekend or a complete null, like a just nothing. That's been like the last 2 weekends now, basically. Just an observation. It's the same with Maserati. I know that team
Yeah.
are in quite dire straits at the minute. But yeah, and more so the McLaren. That's a Mercedes EQ guys that are still there.
Yeah.
So it's quite puzzling that it doesn't seem to come together, even though they have the hardware.
Yep. It's just one of those things. And as I said, it strikes a chord with me to wondering the strength of Formula E, whereas, we're losing Maserati, but Maserati doesn't seem like it's a Formula E issue at all, really. It's just a money issue on their side. Whereas this McLaren leaving hints to me at more of a Formula E issue, because otherwise they would stay. Like they've put a little bit of effort in, with the facilities in Bicester, so like time and effort has gone in. And I know Tobias has put in chat McLaren is like a no-brand, it's just like a marketing, but the fact that we've got McLaren in the series and the name McLaren is huge, right? Because everyone
it's a racing brand.
Yeah, it's McLaren, right? So whatever guise or thing that it's set up in, it's still McLaren, right? And so you go down to the street and tell X, Y, and Z that Formula E's got McLaren in it, they go, "Oh, interesting," right? Whereas if we have Opel, for example, people go, "That's just a normal car that I could get off the road, and it's not that expensive, and it's not that, it's a bit mundane." So
there's no wow factor to that.
There's no wow factor. It's like, oh, Opel, that doesn't scream to me like it's a great championship. No offense to Opel, they do have racing heritage, but people can buy their cars on the cheap, and therefore they're not seen as special as when you see a McLaren drive past, or a Ferrari drive past, or in my case a Corvette drive past, which I saw in Monaco, a yellow one, and I was very, very, very happy, and I was like, this is my dream car. You get excited, and you want names like Jaguar. You get excited for Jaguar. You get excited for Nissan, not Nissan, but you respect it. It's a respectable name. I'm not saying Opel isn't a respectable name, but it's a
no.
It's just
it's a very niche, like for racing anyway. It's very.
It's a bit
niche.
like Renault in Formula One, right? Renault was probably the least name. It's like Renault, like If they
the thing is, Renault have history, sort of like Renault have that history in F1, but they're not. Yeah,
but it's not like a name you go wow.
If anything,
we don't go wow for Red Bull.
If anything, Nissan are like Renault.
Yeah.
It is Renault basically.
Yeah, because they are the same. They are one and the same.
Yes,
it was the rebound that they wanted to do back in the day.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, like from a British perspective, we don't really know a huge amount about Opel, because over here I think they're all Vauxhalls, aren't they?
Yeah. So that's what loads of people have been saying. But Sam, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on the FE Bar, and hopefully we'll chat to you again in a couple of weeks' time after Tokyo.
Thanks so much, guys. See you later.
No worries. See you later. Right, let's get Lou in, because I know Lou is still up and about in Monaco, probably. I don't know. Where are you, Lou? Are you still in Monaco? Well, south of France region?
I'm currently in Menton.
Menton, yes, nice. Yeah, still south of France. Lovely area of the world. How did you find Formula E and the races over the weekend?
Yeah, it was chaos with the unexpected rain. It was really entertaining. I think, at least from the grandstand, it's always very different experience from the grandstand than from TV sometimes. But from the grandstand, it looked really exciting. Also with the pit boost, also weird things happening with. I still need to re-watch the races to fully understand what happened, to be honest. But with Muller being in the lead at the one point, like,
he just used more energy at the start, obviously recovering from his pit stop, and it mean he could go into his pit boost stop at the right time, and the others weren't ready yet. So basically, he was able to get a free pit stop effectively, and it brought him right into contention. But then his free pit stop didn't work, which was quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting strategies happening.
What did you make of the pit boost race? I don't know if you had a look at the cars charging. Like, what did you make of it?
Yeah, we were sitting opposite of the pit, so we could actually see the pit boost happening. Well, that whole Saturday was started as a dream, to be honest, with Dan doing as well as he did in the free practices and quali. Yeah, it was like you could follow it rightly from that vantage point. But yeah, I don't know if it didn't really. I don't know how much of a difference it in the end made, but that maybe because I was looking from the grandstand that I didn't have a full picture of how it had an effect on the order of where people were exactly driving. And to be honest, I was mainly focusing on what Kiro was doing during the race. So, and it didn't really look like they did the right things from the
outside,
where they went back on track. Yeah,
strategy wise.
Loti, I just wanted to ask, because you gave a present to Dan Tickton. What was that present?
We did do that. Was an idea from me and Helen. We had it was a mug actually, like to drink out, with a print on it, and that's what we gave, and we wrapped it in a photo of like they did a social media video.
Yeah.
With like it was like I think like a TikTok audio or something. They were playbacking that, and it ended with your mug. As the text.
Well, no. I'm sure he would have loved that. Just to end, what did you make on? I know Nick had a bit of a rant on his Instagram stuff. What did you make of it?
I don't know what Nick said, to be honest. I did say what Dan said on his Instagram.
Did you mean Dan, Jack?
What Dan said on his Instagram. Sorry, yes. I don't know if I got it the wrong way around.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't exactly know what Dan said on the radio because I was at track. I didn't listen to the radio. I didn't listen to the full radio. I did hear one description of the text that he said. Which is like a figure of speech. You know, it's not something he, of course, meant to really do. And I heard, I saw the messages, like, you know, the radio message that was put out, like the radio video with all the bad bits put together, and of course the whole shitload of hatred that is underneath those videos with the comments. So honestly, I don't think I can call what Dan did on Instagram really a rant in a way, because I didn't think it was that much of a rant. But I don't really see it as something that was, that bad. To be honest.
No, fair enough.
Pretty reasonable. It was also, like on Cassidy said, some people see it as a racing incident. He wasn't that harsh on it in that point. That video. So.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Lou, thank you so much for coming on and waiting around. And I hope you had a good day. I know you had a bit of train bother. I think it looked like from the Discord.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. French trains, they're fairly reliable. But when they don't work, they don't work.
I have to be fair, these were Italian trains that were cancelled.
Did you go to Ventimiglia then?
Italy.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to Ventimiglia, had a little walk, and then want to go back, and there were no trains. So.
Fair enough. But yeah, thank you for going. When do you come home?
Saturday.
Saturday. All right. Enjoy the rest of the week out there. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Enjoy it. Right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, have a good day.
And you, bye.
Cheers, Lacey.
And then last but not least, Chris. Hello, Chris.
How are we doing, gents?
We're doing very well.
Good.
You've come to wrap up the show again. I'm sure you've wrapped up the show before.
I'm pretty sure I'm normally near the end.
Yeah.
Best till last, obviously.
Yeah, you normally pop in the waiting room towards. You're probably one of the last ones normally to join the waiting room.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, but yeah, what did you make of Monaco?
Oh, well, it was an exciting race, to be fair.
I thought it was good. You know, especially with the wet on Sunday with the wet tires. I know, Nick said earlier that that it was terrible, but I thought as a spectacle it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be a lot worse, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was expecting crashes. Well, Nick is a very persuasive man, and he tells you things, and he's not 9 times out of 10 he's wrong, to be fair, and not on the stuff that he gets his sources on, but when he starts telling you hypothetical things about people crashing and when it's going to rain, 9 times out of 10 he's wrong. But yeah, so he was hyping me up for a really bad race, but I thought we had a good one.
I think that's probably fair, actually.
Yeah. What did you make of the championship in terms of like Roland at the minute and so forth, and how it's going into place for him?
Well, this is kind of what the point I wanted to bring in. So, it feels like I'm going to finish on a downer, I'm afraid.
Okay.
But you've got a driver.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got a driver that's got 70% more points in second place.
Mm-hmm.
And the team's not even leading the team's championship.
Oh, poor Norman.
I know, I love Norman. I feel so harsh because I do love him.
He could have won in Miami.
Yeah, he could have done.
He kind of did, and then he didn't.
You could argue it was the rules that let him down, right? Because he had a penalty of not using 2 minutes of his attack mode. You could argue, but he shouldn't have been penalised. But he did do fairly well in Miami. It's a shame. I don't know what the problem is really with Norman. I'm a big fan. He's a lovely guy to interview, lovely guy to talk to. We have great respect for each other from our side and with Norman. But yeah, it's just not clicking for whatever reason. But Formula E is a tricky championship. But
I will say, Norman's a slow burner. Norman has always been a slow burner. He starts slow and then he peaks towards the end of the year because he won his last race with Venturi. But when he was with Nissan last, he got the team's sole podium of the year at the penultimate race of the year in Rome. Andretti, he got the podium in Shanghai. So wait for Tokyo. I reckon it's gonna come in. It's gonna come in Tokyo.
And you have to remember with Norman, Shanghai, he got a podium last season.
That's what I said.
With Andretti at Shanghai. So yeah, you're right. He is a bit of a slow burner. So fingers crossed for him that
I hope that Miami was going to be the thing that sort of perked him up, and then this weekend has not been ideal for him.
No, it really hasn't, has it? But it worries me with Norman, and I say with obviously the up in the air at McLaren.
Yep.
Eyeballs are going to start turning, aren't they? And we know where they're going to turn to.
Yep. Well, the thing is, he's contracted, so that team should stay on the grid. So we know that team is stay on the grid. So Taylor Barnard does have a contract with the Ian James team, as we call it now, for next season. But that doesn't mean it can't be broken, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, we all know the strength of contracts these days.
Yep.
And if you've got a talented driver like that...
who's your favourite Nissan driver for this season? Mine is Sasha Fenestras. Yeah.
That's a callback. I know. Then
he's only been gone half a year. It feels like a decade ago.
Yeah,
though.
it does.
I know, and you've got to remember how harsh his drop was.
Yeah, for Norman.
And for Norman,
Norman's come in, and it's.
I think Sasha could have been just as good. And
I think Sasha would be more or less same places as Norman is at the moment, if not more points.
I think Sasha would have
had more championship. Have you seen the championship? He's 19th. The three drivers behind him are an Envision
of Robin Frines.
Robin Frines.
Two rookies.
Yeah, Maloney and Beckman. Yeah.
But it's not like he's a bad driver. He's not a bad driver. He's just
he's not a bad driver.
No,
on his day, he's mega. But
and speaking to him, he says he's not had much luck this season, and he's hoping the luck turns. But then, Only
Yeah,
Nissan
thing
know.
is,
Nissan know how well he's doing in a
at
sense.
at the preseason test in Madrid, where I got to speak to Norman on one of the days because Nissan was forced to sit out one of the I think it was the first afternoon of testing, and I spoke to and I spoke to him there, and the thing is because he has come back to this team and he was brutally shunned to the sidelines once, and so I did sort of bring it up again. I mean, I do pick my moments. But yeah, no, it was something that like he wasn't too concerned about. Like when you've got your teammate who is dominating this championship at the moment, and you are Norman Nato, who is how many points is he on? Is he on?
11.
Double digits? Double
11.
digits. Okay, that's a relief.
Only
Yeah,
from that poll, I remember. That's just from the 3 points.
yeah, it was
But
3
then he
points poll
obviously
and then
he
6.
got
So-
6th place
so
in
it was only
Miami.
Miami. It was only Miami. Okay.
Yeah. That's the issue. But again, on the flip side, so's Mitch. Mitch just lucky to have a win.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
But-
it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. But on the flip side of Mitch, Nick is on the same amount of points, and both drivers are struggling. But when you've got one at the top and one angry near the bottom, and I say that's how prize money's given out, isn't it, on teams?
Yep.
So when you are literally affecting the team's championship that much,
I'll tell you what.
And also
Oliver
he
Rowland
missed
and
he missed his 2 races later in the year. Sergio said to camera stepping in, and if Sergio's on his A game in Berlin, then I wouldn't pass them keeping Sergio in the car for the final weekend in London.
Maybe.
If Sergio performs.
Maybe.
Possibly. I mean,
bit harsh on Norman.
The thing is, this is a long way in the future. There is
it'll be
so many things that could happen.
It'll be round before you know it. It'll be round before you know it.
Oh yeah.
Chris, anything to add before we wrap up the show?
I think that's covered what I wanted to cover. I mean, finish on a downer, unless we can think of something positive to finish on.
2 weeks to Tokyo.
No.
1 week.
In 1 week time, we will have 10 finalists for Eurovision 2025. That's the important thing.
I thought the semi-finals for that were like on a Wednesday and a Thursday, and then the semi-final was...
It's a Tuesday, Thursday, then the final is Saturday. So there's 1 day of break between each of them.
Yeah, but so it's different this year then, because you're
No.
finding. So what's this finding out next Saturday? Is it next Tuesday? Oh, this time next week's next Tuesday. Sorry, I'm
This time next week is a Tuesday. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm miles.
Believe
away.
it or not, 1 week time it will still be Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah, that's how dates work. Yeah.
I mean, this is like the master from your game earlier, Jack.
Mate, I did my adding up. Didn't use a calculator. Use what God gave me. These fingers. We love a game. Hilarious. But yeah. Is what it is. Is what it is. And 2 weeks to Tokyo. 1 week to
2 weeks to Tokyo. Not a night race though, as Nicky alluded to.
Not a night race.
Actually, yes. It. Can we just confirm it's not a night race? Is it?
It's at 3 p.m. local time.
It's 3 p.m. Unless there's something very severe
Did Nicky
happening.
say it was a night race? I didn't hear.
She said under the lights.
Nicky signed off with under the light. This time it's under the lights.
She did actually sign off with under the lights.
And honestly, I genuinely had to run to the Discord and go, "Is it?" Because I hadn't been told about this. Like,
no, I was desperate for Tokyo to be under the lights.
Maybe,
you know what?
Maybe one day.
If it's under the lights, I might wake up for it. Because there's no way that I would be sober enough to wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning.
You wouldn't wake
on
up.
Sunday.
You should be awake.
Yeah, I was going to say you'll sleep
If it was a
after
night
it,
race. Be like
No.
midday.
But it's a night race the other side of the world. So a night race would be like 10, 11 o'clock here, and that would be a normal enough time for me to wake up.
Yeah.
After the night of Eurovision.
Okay.
Maybe if it's a typhoon, they'll turn the lights on. You never know.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe they just put some lights up just for the fun of it.
Yeah,
Right.
just giggles.
Right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
No worries.
Cheers, Chris. All right,
ta-ra.
Oh, I've clicked the wrong thing.
Oh.
There we go. And that's it. Big apologies. The waiting room was full tonight.
Yeah.
We obviously
we didn't get on.
So
Some people disappeared, so we're sorry we didn't get you on.
Sorry we didn't go on, but you know we were popular tonight. It was probably the most popular we've ever been. So, which is amazing to see. So, thank you so much. We try and get. If you'd stayed around, we would have definitely tried to have got you on. Look, we're here 18 minutes past 10 o'clock, so we do try and get people on. And so forth, and obviously yes, we did talk to Nick for a little bit, and obviously we had Jasmine on a little bit earlier, but you know we have to put in people to come in just in case it's not as busy, because we know that's the beauty of it being live, is that I have to make sure I have some, we have to make sure we've got some guarantees that there'll be people talking, and obviously Nick at 9 is a big feature, and getting extra news from journalists and you guys being fully in the know about what's happening is fully important. So and it also adds to the show. But so sorry if you didn't get on, but good news for you. There'll be another chance to get on an Febar around Tokyo, and who knows, maybe even a special. Who knows, right? Things are working on and ticking away in the background. So there's always a chance. But Pico, thank you so much for tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And we'll sign off. Good night.